Somewhere in a test facility in Central Texas, a machine no bigger than a kitchen refrigerator is quietly doing something extraordinary. It is drinking in carbon dioxide and water and breathing out rocket fuel. Not on Earth, where that trick is merely clever. This machine is being built to do it on Mars, where that trick is the difference between a one-way trip and a round-trip ticket home. And in the coming years, if current development timelines hold, SpaceX's Starship, potentially as early as the 15th or 16th vehicle in its iterative flight campaign, could carry this device to the Martian surface, igniting a chain of events that would reshape human spaceflight forever. But here's what makes this story so strange. The physics behind this fuel plant was first described over 100 years ago. The chemistry is well understood. The engineering is within reach. And yet, no space agency on Earth has ever committed to landing one on another planet at operational scale. Until now. To understand why a fuel factory on Mars matters, you first have to understand the single most brutal equation in all of spaceflight. It is called the tyranny of the rocket equation, and it governs everything. Every kilogram of payload you want to bring home from Mars requires many additional kilograms of fuel. And that fuel itself requires fuel to launch from Earth, and that fuel requires still more fuel. The numbers cascade exponentially. By the time you do the math, bringing enough return fuel from Earth to Mars and back would require a spacecraft so massive, so expensive, and so impractical that the mission collapses under its own weight. This is not a new problem. NASA identified it decades ago during early Mars mission architecture studies. The solution they proposed, even back in the 1990s under the leadership of engineer Robert Zubrin and the Mars Direct plan, was elegant. Do not carry the fuel with you. Make it there. The concept is called In-Situ Resource Utilization, or ISRU. Instead of hauling everything from Earth, you use what Mars already offers. And what Mars offers, in surprising abundance, is carbon dioxide. The Martian atmosphere is roughly 95% CO2. If you can combine that carbon dioxide with hydrogen, brought from Earth in relatively small quantities or eventually extracted from Martian water ice, you can produce methane and oxygen through a well-known chemical reaction called the Sabatier process. Methane and oxygen, the exact propellants that SpaceX's Raptor engines burn. This is not a coincidence. When Elon Musk chose methane as the fuel for Starship's Raptor engines, he was not merely optimizing for engine performance. He was designing the entire architecture around the assumption that fuel would one day be manufactured on Mars. The choice of propellant was, from the beginning, a bet on ISRU. But this is where things get more interesting. Theoretical chemistry is one thing. Making it work on the surface of Mars is something else entirely. NASA's Perseverance rover carried a small experiment called MOXIE, the Mars Oxygen In-Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. MOXIE landed in 2021 and successfully demonstrated that oxygen could be extracted from the Martian atmosphere using solid oxide electrolysis. Over the course of its operational life, MOXIE produced oxygen at roughly the rate a small tree would on Earth. It was a proof of concept, not a production facility, but it proved the fundamental chemistry works in Martian conditions, in the cold, the dust, the low pressure, the relentless hostility of another world. Wait, what SpaceX is now developing goes far beyond MOXIE. The company's ISRU prototype systems, sometimes referred to internally and in public discussions as the Sabatier reactor units, aim to produce methane and liquid oxygen at a scale thousands of times greater than anything MOXIE achieved. We are talking about producing hundreds of tons of propellant, enough to fully fuel a Starship for its return journey to Earth. And this is the critical connection to Starship's flight campaign. SpaceX has adopted an aggressive iterative testing philosophy. Each Starship flight builds on lessons from the last. The early flights, which began in 2023, focused on basic launch and ascent survival, booster recovery, stage separation, and controlled re-entry. Later flights are expected to demonstrate orbital refueling, payload deployment, and eventually lunar landings under NASA's Artemis program. Each numbered flight pushes the vehicle closer to its ultimate purpose by the time the program reaches its mid-teen flights. and publicly available roadmaps suggest the 15th flight, or those in that approximate window, could coincide with early Mars-focused cargo missions. The Starship system is expected to have matured enough to attempt uncrewed cargo deliveries to the Martian surface. However, the real story is even more surprising than a simple cargo drop. The plan, as described by Musk in multiple public presentations and corroborated by SpaceX engineering disclosures, is to send uncrewed starships to Mars loaded with infrastructure before any human ever sets foot on the planet. Among the most critical payloads in these early cargo ships would be the propellant production plant. The fuel factory needs to land, deploy, and begin operating autonomously for months, possibly years, before a crewed mission ever launches. Think about what that means. A robotic chemical plant, sitting on the rust-colored plains of Mars, pulling carbon dioxide from the thin atmosphere, reacting it with hydrogen, liquefying the resulting methane and oxygen, and storing them in insulated tanks, all without a single human being within 50 million kilometers. The plant would need to survive temperature swings from minus 60 degrees Celsius at night to just above freezing during the day. It would need to filter Martian dust that is finer than talcum powder and chemically reactive. It would need to operate through global dust storms that can shroud the entire planet for weeks. The engineering challenges are formidable but not insurmountable. Power is one of the most significant constraints. The Sabatier process and the electrolysis systems that support it are energy intensive. Solar panels on Mars receive roughly 40% of the sunlight that reaches Earth's surface, and dust accumulation further degrades their efficiency over time. SpaceX has discussed the possibility of deploying large solar arrays from cargo starships, though some Mars mission architects argue that small nuclear reactors, such as the kilopower systems NASA has been testing, may ultimately prove more practical for sustained ISRU operations. Water is another challenge. While the Sabatier process requires hydrogen, Mars does possess significant water ice deposits, particularly near the poles and in subsurface layers at mid-latitudes. Orbital surveys from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and ESA's Mars Express have mapped these ice reserves in considerable detail. If the fuel plant can be sited near accessible ice, the entire supply chain closes. Mars provides both the carbon dioxide and the water, and the only thing that needs to come from Earth is the machinery itself. And this is the moment the economics of Mars exploration fundamentally change. Consider the numbers. A single Starship requires approximately 1,200 tons of propellant for a return trip from Mars. Launching that fuel from Earth would require multiple tanker flights, an orbital fuel depot, and a transfer vehicle, an architecture so complex and expensive it has stalled Mars planning for decades. But if that propellant is manufactured on Mars, the return flight becomes almost routine. You land, you refuel, you come home. This is not science fiction. It is chemical engineering applied to planetary exploration. And if SpaceX's Starship campaign proceeds roughly as planned, the hardware to make it real could be on its way to Mars within this decade. Now, it is important to note that timelines in spaceflight are notoriously optimistic. SpaceX's own projections have shifted multiple times, and the specific numbering of which Starship flight carries which payload remains fluid and is not always publicly confirmed. What is confirmed is the strategic intent. SpaceX is building toward Mars cargo missions. ISRU is central to the return architecture, and the Starship vehicle is being explicitly designed to enable it. The implications extend beyond SpaceX. If a propellant plant operates successfully on Mars, it validates the entire concept of living off the land on other worlds. Lunar ISRU, asteroid mining, even deep space refueling depots all become more credible once the principle is demonstrated at scale on another planet. Mars becomes not just a destination but a proof of concept for a spacefaring civilization. We are approaching a moment in history where the first factory on another world could begin production. Not crewed by astronauts, not operated by hand, but humming quietly in the Martian wind, turning an alien atmosphere into the fuel that brings the next generation home. If stories like this fascinate you, the real science behind humanity's boldest ventures into the cosmos, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We cover the missions, the machines, and the discoveries that are shaping the future of exploration, one documentary at a time. The The Sabatier reaction was first described in 1897 by French chemist Paul Sabatier. Over a century later, his chemistry might just open the road to Mars. Some discoveries simply have to wait for the world to catch up.